episode 177. I'm not good enough to be a perfectionist. I don't know if we need to say even more than that to describe it, but I'm Deborah Henson-Conant, and I'm here with Kathleen Wiley. I'm a composer and a performer, and I play the harp. Kathleen Wiley is a Jungian psychoanalyst, and she plays the harp. So we call this Jung at Harp. And every week we meet with a question or a concept to talk about with you. This particular platform that we're in lets you, depending on where you're watching from or listening from and when you're doing that, it lets you actually take part in the conversation. And we love it when you do. We come here in the spirit of conversation. It's not a podcast about, we're going to tell you how to do this or blah, 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 blah. We're exploring the things that are actually in our lives, and we're exploring them through the power of conversation with you. So, Kathleen, before we got on, we were talking about perfectionism, and we were talking about patterns. So in Hip Harp Academy, which is where I teach, there is, we're in the power of pattern quarter. Every quarter we look at music through a different lens, but a very fundamental lens, first principles of creativity. And one of them is the power of pattern, and how if we're focused on trying to remember everything that we're doing technically, it becomes very difficult to be self-expressed. We're just focusing on that. And so in the power of pattern quarter, we look at how we can use patterns to get comfortable with where we are so that we can allow ourselves to be self-expressed through the music. However, we know that while we can choose patterns that we want to develop, there are patterns that we have been given that are undermining us in our lives or blocking us, like perfectionistic tendencies, patterns that we saw our parents do, or we saw people in the world do, or that they actually intentionally passed on to us. Like I heard a friend was talking about it and said, I'm a perfectionist. I try to perfect things, not because I want it to be perfect, but because I'm afraid of what's going to happen if it isn't. And I get that way too. With sheet music, I can project. I'm like, if I write it this way, then I'm going to get questions here, and people are going to be emailing me, and then I'm going to have to write back to them. And I'm concerned that people aren't meeting me halfway, and because they're perfectionistic, they want to do it right rather than just taking the music, doing what they can with it. So when perfectionist meets perfectionist, whoa! So. And I was saying before, I also said something to you that I would love to hear you talk about. I said something about, well, we can't really go on to a new chapter of our life until we turn the page on the last. I heard a friend of mine said that too. And you said, well, actually, we do go to the past for certain reasons. And I said, I would love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah. Gosh, let's see where to begin. So, part of as we're talking, I'm thinking about that Angeles Arian, who was a cultural anthropologist and spiritual teacher, used to say that perfectionism is the shadow side of excellence. That perfectionism actually keeps us from feeling our own excellence. And so I'm thinking about that. And it kind of connects to what your friend said about I'm a perfectionist because I'm afraid of what will happen if I'm not. That what will happen to me in my mind usually is about someone else's rejection or judgment or criticism. And so that we then keep striving for some elusive, unclear ideal, which is what perfectionism is. And it keeps us out of our excellence. And then I'm also thinking about your experience with sheet music, and this may have to do with some patterning. So when you wrote Invention and Alchemy and Invention and Alchemy.
What you mean that
you did with the Boston Pops.
Oh, okay. So with the Grand Rapids Symphony, but yes.
Yeah, Grand Rapids. Okay,
right.
okay, thank you. And you took the sheet music to the conductor, and he said, "This won't work."
Oh, the very first time I played with symphony orchestra, right, when I wrote Baroque Flamenco out, and
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
not
thank
even
you.
know how to write it right. Yeah.
Thank you for all the details. And he said, this won't work, but I know someone who can fix it. And so
Mhm.
I was also thinking about how patterns and standard ways of doing things are a way we communicate with other people, i.e., in this world of
Mhm.
music. It's
Mhm.
also a way we communicate in our family systems, and it's why we internalize certain patterns of how we relate to one another,
Mhm.
because that's how we see parents relating, or grandparents, or siblings. And so then, in order to relate, we have to kind of learn that pattern, and all that happens automatically. So I'm thinking about that. Now let me see if
Yeah.
I can pull it all together. So we do have to let go of the past in order to fully live in the present. But from the perspective of Jungian analysis, if someone keeps circling back to something in the past, or rather something from the past keeps hijacking the present,
Mhm.
then it's because there is some capacity or bit of the cell that got caught in an unintegrated experience in that historical moment, that one has got to get consciousness to, in order to have the inner resources to move forward in the way they want to move forward now in the present.
I have a feeling that you have as you were talking, I was thinking, oh, and I think she's talking about something different than what I was doing this morning when I was thinking of something did bad to me in the past, and I was going into it with a victim. Actually, I could feel myself going into this victim place, which can sometimes feel like so
Mm-hmm.
delicious. Like, it's definitely not my fault because I'm a victim. I have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling you're talking about not going back to visit and stir that pot, but to do something different.
Right, right. To go back and really look at and get in touch with that part of the cell that might have been a victim, or that might have had to have been the rescuer of an alcoholic parent or a suicidal parent. Those are extremes, but
Mhm, mhm.
um, or that might have
Or a
you know,
perfectionistic parent.
or a
Oh,
perfectionistic parent, or becoming the perpetrator in order to try to protect oneself. So,
mm,
but that is different than nurturing an attitude that helps one elude taking responsibility for oneself now. So I think
mhm.
you picked up on an important distinction, is where do we feed that negative thing versus where does it hijack and take us over? And when it hijacks and takes us over, then that's where there's a bit of the self we need to connect with and bring forward, because there's the energy that has the capacity for us to do what we want in the present. What you're talking about gets into another category of um, it really has to do more with attachment, and I think fear of being self-responsible.
So it's really interesting as you're saying this. I'm thinking about there's a retreat. I'm hosting a retreat, and it's a performance retreat. And I know that in the past, when I've been either hosting retreats or at a retreat, there are situations where people will start talking about what they did in the past, or talking about, and it hijacks, it takes away from that moment when
Hmm.
you have the opportunity to be performing and to be taking that energy, whatever it was, and putting it into the performance. But they, and me, I've been one of those people, will talk about it instead. And it's almost like as if they were a basketball player, and they step out of the out there, it's about they have a chance to make a play, but instead they step out and they go up into the stands and start talking about the game instead of being in the game.
Well, yeah, and so what comes to my mind, and I don't know for sure that this is what's going on, is sometimes people who aren't fully embodied in the present
Mm-hmm.
moment because of anxiety or
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism, anxiety that comes from perfectionism or whatever, try to locate themselves by going into the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people are talking about, well, I did this, or this happened, and this happened, I wonder sometimes if it's an attempt to find oneself because they're not really fully present now in this moment. And there's a little bit of a disconnection from self or a dissociation. So, coming back and really feeling oneself in this moment, one's feet, one's butt on the chair, what it feels like to have the harp resting on your shoulder, what it feels like to be in the retreat space and to be with this new group of people. It's a way of bringing people into the present to locate themselves now. And that has to be the starting point for any creative self-expression that's authentic.
Wow. I'm thinking of all the times that I've stopped myself from being creative, even just in my meeting with Gustavo on Wednesday, who's my sort of my partner in the legacy team of creating the music, one of the partners, but the one that I meet with to actually get the music. And I just like went off on this thing about, what happened in the past and who did this and who said this to me. Like I did exactly what I'm just talking about right now. I wasn't able to be in the present, creating what I was creating. And another thing I heard another friend say, but we were just talking about perfectionism. I heard all these great things that people said. One said, or I thought, I can't remember, they said it or thought it. I thought it doesn't matter because now I'm being perfectionist about how I'm saying this. But it was like, when you're being perfectionistic, you deprive everyone around you of your gift. And talking about it in some ways, if it's not within the performance realm, deprives them as well. It shuts down the conduit. So you're doing everything but actually opening it up. Now, why did I just say that to you, Kathleen?
Well, I think it has to do again with how do we locate ourselves in the present, and do we feel like we have value? If we don't feel like we have value, then we're not going to show up, much less if we don't feel like what we create has value, we're not going to offer it. So that unconscious shame that we talk about a lot will seep in and sidetrack somebody.
Well, Kathleen, I have been watching My Cat from Hell. And I see so much of myself in the cats. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about how every cat from hell, who whatever they do, they pee on things, they scratch, they bite, whatever they do. It all comes back to what you just said a moment ago of, in a sense, not being able to locate themselves in the present, not having ownership of themselves and their environment. And I'm thinking that I'm thinking, yeah, every time I worry that when I'm trying to write something, I can't write the best that I can because I'm worried that somebody's going to say, why did you do it this way? Or I don't understand, or why did you use that thing? And it makes it very difficult for me. And it's not their fault. I mean, and it's one of the reasons that I have a team now. I have a legacy project team so that I can go to them, and so that as a team, we can make decisions. And it certainly helps me to be able to publish. Otherwise, I would never publish anything. I was just sitting there worried that I was going to write it wrong.
Right. Yeah. So you're also talking about the value of relationship. And that we need each other sometimes in order to get pulled out of this kind of quicksand of shame. We need something to hold, or someone to hold on to pull ourselves out of it. And so how important that is to have relationships that are supportive, to have a team that encourages us. And that, again, hopefully helps build the inner team that supports us.
So we were talking about patterns and how the power of pattern, it helps us. I mean, in a negative way, it takes something that a pattern that a parent is modeling or something. We take it in, and then we start self-expressing with it, whether it's a positive pattern or a negative pattern. But then we can choose, especially in music, we can choose to find patterns or to learn patterns, and that's what we're doing this quarter, that allow us self-expression. And what I'm thinking is that as we actually learn ways of self-expression, that we can be like, oh yeah, I can do this. Maybe I can't play Clair de Lune, but I can play this. I do it, and I do it over and over and over again. What I'm thinking is, as we stop being I don't know what, and become a conduit for the flow of self-expression, we start experience. It's almost like being able to breathe. As we're able to breathe, we're able to sing. As we're able to let that energy flow, we're able to express, we're able to be present. So what I'm thinking right now is, my God, find the simplest thing that I can do and really do it. Whatever, like the minute I start feeling perfectionistic or that I'm stuck or might be, to find the simplest thing that I can do and that I love to do, and do it, even if it's just like that, just that movement is, just like, wow, how beautiful is that?
Right. But what you're describing is shifting from this attachment to an outer expectation, or again, a kind of nebulous, it should be a certain way, to locating oneself, being in oneself, and saying, okay, what am I experiencing? How does this sound to me? Where does my hand want to go? What's the dance I want to do on the harp? That's a very different connection to self than when you're like, oh, I've got to get this just right and play it like I heard this person
Yeah.
play.
And what's interesting, I'm going to just step over to the harp here for a second. What I noticed is that I think it's because of people coming out of the conservatory sort of mindset, whether they were in a conservatory or not, is that once people do get a pattern, they often will stop doing it, because then they think it's time to go learn something else. And I'm just thinking, like, something as simple as, that's part of the nightingale, but it's very, very simple. It's just one note and two notes, and then those two notes, it comes up. That's all it is. But you could sing forever on this little thing, this pattern. And if you moved one thing and kept the rest the same, you'd have a new pattern. And you could come back, something as simple as that, and then coming back to it, grounding on it, moving away from it, coming back to it. And I find that what a pattern that tends to come into people's minds is, that's not good enough. All I'm doing is XYZ. And missing the fact that you're creating a conduit for the self-expression. It's almost like if you had a parched garden and you had a hose, and you hooked up a hose so that the water could go in, and the water was a little rusty at first or something, and you were like, oh, well, then turn it off. But the point is, it's opening the channel.
Yeah, and again, the conduit, when it's that flow of energy, comes from within oneself. And the minute we start judging or comparing that or competing with someone else's way of doing it, that we foreclose it. And so that comparing and competing and judging, they're lethal.
Yeah.
They're
And it's so
lethal.
funny, and I want to bring up what Victoria said in a sec. It's so funny, Kathleen, it seems like no matter where we start, we so often come back to these same fundamental ways of either shutting ourselves down or opening ourselves up. And now that I'm saying it like that, I'm thinking, well, yes, Deborah, shutting down and opening up is a fundamental first principle of flow or not flow. And yeah, it's only, and are you going to stand there and say, well, that's not very interesting. There's only two things. It's just open and it's closed. I mean, is it open or is it closed? Like, okay, all right, I'll pull up Victoria. Okay, Victoria says, small actions build momentum. I've learned to take small actions with my act, even if I keep them private and not share them for now. Because the more I do, the more I learn how to be a conduit for self-expression. Yes, exactly. Now, Victoria has an act. Ooh, that just makes me want to see it, whatever it is. Oh, maybe she means art. But is it act or is it art? I don't care. I like it both ways.
Maybe Victoria, you'll tell
Right.
us.
It's funny because I noticed that I was really enjoying being that character that was like, I don't know, I'm like, and then it was like, Deborah, stop it.
There's the judgment.
Well, okay, so talk to me about this, Kathleen. Am I being me when I'm that way, or am I hiding me? It's kind of.
Well, I think it depends on whether you're fully present in it or not. And is it something that feels like a genuine expression of your own affect, your own emotional experience in the moment, or is it put on? I mean, yeah. And Victoria's saying it is art.
Yeah, well, I want
It's too early in the morning here.
I was so excited when it said act. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it really has to do with, well, I mean, if let's just play with it for a minute. That's part of your art. Part of your art is being an entertainer.
That's
Right?
true. That's true. Ever since I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to act
It's
it out.
part
I
of
want to
your
be it. I
art.
want to be all the characters and look over here. I want to do
Yeah.
that. Right.
Yeah. So again, if that's part of your art, being an entertainer or being an actor or feeling into the different roles, then that's authentic. I think the key is, do you do it to divert from feelings of vulnerability or emotional connection with someone else in the moment? That would be a different
Well, let's
thing.
go. Okay. So, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm hiding or whether I'm revealing.
Right.
So let's take somebody who laughs after everything they say. But they think they're a jolly person, or that nervous laughter thing. How can someone know whether they, and I hear myself do it sometimes, and I think I'm being charming, but I'm probably not.
I'll never forget in college, because I had I think I've tempered it, but I had a really bad chronic nervous kind of laugh after everything. And I had a roommate in college who came in and was upset with me about something. I don't even remember, but I responded, but then I laughed, a nervous laugh. I don't even think I knew I laughed. And she got so mad at me for laughing at her, laughing about it. And it was a real wake up call to me about this nervous habit that I had, which was related to my anxiety about being myself and having my own need and my own vulnerability. Um, so I mean, that's my experience with it, and I think a lot of people do that. Again, it is a matter of looking at what's the motivation, what's the emotional, energetic motivation within one's body when it happens. And these things also have impact on other people. So again, we're going back for a minute to the music with the Boston Pops for Rick Flamingo. It had to be in a standardized form because that was a standardized group. That's the way it works, you know. And so if I'm engaging with someone and they're telling me they're upset with me and I have a nervous laugh, that probably isn't going to go over really well. And I probably do want to temper that. So I think the other thing we have to separate out in perfectionism and excellence is perfectionism doesn't let me say it differently. Just because there might be standardized systems that we sometimes need to participate in, or standardized ways of presenting things, or standardized kind of emotional engagement with other people, that has to be separated out from an attempt to be a perfectionist, to being more present in the moment, to all of the realities, which include realities outside of ourselves.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I really don't have much anxiety about writing for symphony orchestra. I have anxiety about writing for harp. And I realized that one of the things that happened, so Kathleen was talking about I always wanted to write for symphony orchestra. I got the opportunity. It wasn't with a little orchestra, it was with the Boston Pops. I really wanted to write my own music. I got a book called How to Orchestrate, which is right on my shelf. I wrote it. I took it to the conductor, and I can't believe the patience of this man. He looked at it and he was like, silence. And then he was like, this is not going to work. And it wasn't because the music didn't make sense. It was that I did not know the standards. I did not have all the things on the page that the players would expect to see, that would allow them to be self-expressed. And so what happened in that moment, it was a really important moment of my life. And I just have to thank this man, because if I were him, I probably would have freaked out and said, we're not playing your music. Let's just play ours. But I said, what could fix this? What could we do? What could make a difference? And so happy I said that. And he said, well, I know someone who could fix it. And he hooked me up with a guy, actually two guys, a copyist and an arranger. They literally came over to my house. They literally lived with me 24 hours. We shared a bed, because when someone wasn't at the computer, they were sleeping, like we were around the clock to finish the music. And I learned and what was interesting is that a lot of the music that the arranger added got deleted. So I knew what I wanted to hear, but I did not know how to write it. And it basically came back to what I had wanted to do. But what I learned from that is that conventions, especially for people who are reading it, especially when you're in a situation where a rehearsal costs $39 to $50 a minute, is learning those conventions is really important. But I also learned that there was a book with those conventions. And I also learned that there were people I could go to and I could ask them, look at this. Do I have the convention? I feel like, especially because I am constantly creating unintentionally new techniques or other combination of techniques, that I don't know how to write it. And I feel so insecure about that.
I'm just identifying with you for a minute. I think one of your gifts, and I'm going to say one of my gifts, is the ability to be present in the moment and really let things come together and birth things in the moment with the person we're with. And that is a different process than getting it all worked out ahead of time. And I'm having my own struggle with that, with this book on embodiment. And the embodiment circle has been going for 4 years and is strong, and new spirals added, no problem there, but so I think that it's one of those places also where recognizing strengths and recognizing, everything has a shadow side, right? So what I just said is the shadow side of why it's so hard for you to write music or me to decide these are the right words on the page, but yet what this other capacity is part of who we are and why we show up together almost every week and people come.
And we enjoy them and we enjoy each other. It's really interesting that you're saying that, 'cause two things happened. Recently, and then I want to pull up some of the great comments we're getting. One, so I'm teaching a class called The Nightingale Beyond the Page at Somerset Harp Festival, and they need a handout. And to me, the entire workshop is based on one idea: go down come back up, because that's the pattern at the heart of the nightingale, and it just gets done in a different way. So I don't know how to make a handout, because to me the handout is like, well, it's just a line, dot 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 dot, like that. But I know that they won't feel comfortable, they won't be able to be present without something on the page. And so and then the other thing, but yet it's hard for me to, I feel like it can't just be those dots on a page. It has to be more. But now that I'm speaking to you, I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be more. You just have to share how you see it. The second is, I came up with an idea for a show, and every time I described it to somebody, they were like, oh, that's amazing. But getting it down on paper, when I finally did, after hours and hours, I went back and read it 2 days later, and it was like, what are you even saying? So I feel kind of helpless, and I know it's my perfectionism that is undermining these things. I'm going to pull up some of these. Victoria says, I have learned that it is not possible to be appreciated. See, I mean, I love that Victoria is saying that, because, like, I've heard that a gazillion times, but I haven't learned it. I might as well be authentic with what I do, and those who like what I do will be my audience. At least, I mean, like, that is so sane. And I teach that, but can I do it? No. But I will ask you how to. And Green Rose says hello, and Victoria's saying the embodiment circle sounds like a great experience. Yes. It is. And I think both Kathleen and I are really committed to that, to the body being part of the self-expression. But okay, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. Well, you just have to, the self we are starts in the body. And, playing the harp is such an, I mean, the self we are starts in the body, and we forget
Yeah, I
that,
had never actually knew that.
You actually knew that?
No, you said we forget that, and I was thinking, actually, I'd never thought that. I mean, obviously you're right, but yeah.
Yeah. And so, even coming to the harp, I find that when I sit down and I really allow myself to get still and calm and connect with my essence, to feel myself, and then to call to mind what is it that I'm wanting to share in that moment, it totally changes what I'm playing. Whether I'm playing a tune I've learned, or I'm improvising, it's a totally different experience if I start by the first point is connecting with myself and what's happening inside of me. And then what is it that I want to bring forth on the harp? What's the flow I'm dropping into, whether it's a flow, again, of a piece of music I've learned, or it's a flow of self-expression with improv.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about each person. Like, I'm thinking about the retreat that I'm going to be at, and I was thinking about what you just said. And I was thinking you said something about, like, I sit down in the harp, and then I, think what it is that I want to express. And I was thinking how beautiful it would be to me if you stood at the harp and then, without even playing a note, I mean, you could or not, said what it is you want to express, even without playing anything. And I realized that in some ways, how difficult it is for me to speak, when in fact in my mind everything is singing, and if only I could just sing, I could express myself all the time, and I'm thinking that every person probably has that, or could find those. And now I'm saying it out loud, I'm thinking, you just said this about a body. I feel safe with it, with my voice, but wow, what if I was using every part of me? What would those every parts be?
Right. And your voice is right, is the center, isn't it? The voice is it's connecting all of what's in here with what's in here to come out in words or in sounds. you know and that's part of, I think, for you, my guess, I can't speak for you, but I'm guessing when you sing, there's something you access and you experience rising up in you in a way that spoken words don't have.
Yes, and it's partly the word itself. When you're speaking, you can't repeat, you can't find that, well, it would be awkward to talk to somebody like that, I think. Wouldn't it, all the time? It would be kind of
Well, it's not social convention.
be interesting to have a
So
conversation with somebody else who was doing it and see what it would be like, because part of it is very self-indulgent. I mean, like, I am talking to you, but I'm in, I'm in thinking about me, I'm experiencing. Oh, interesting. But that's part of what the stage is all about, is a space for that.
well, it's a space for that. And I'm thinking about how in singing, it's a normal thing to slow a particular phrase down or speed
Right.
something up. But when we're talking, that isn't a normal. So there's also more room for expressing different felt states in the
Right.
singing than in the speaking.
Okay, I don't know. Let's see. This is Victoria. Yay. You should put a QR code to Jungian Harp as your handout, as my handout. My handout for what?
Oh. I think she's talking about for Somerset.
Oh, it would be quite a handout with loads of food for thought on self-expression. Yeah, you're right. I could be sharing it more, and that I'll just take this opportunity to say we are now sharing on podcast. I mean, like actual podcasts, like Apple Podcast and
The others.
yeah, Apple Podcast and the other guys, and which is very new for us. Thank you to Ivan, my assistant, who has now completed all 176 episodes up to today, and is releasing at least one or two of the old ones each week, as well as the new ones. So you're right, Victoria. It's time for me to start sharing Jungian Harp. And you know why I haven't is I've been perfectionistic about the tech. Does it sound good enough? Is it blah, blah, blah? Is it like a real podcast? I'm saying, I mean, those are the voices in my head. You're going to look stupid. It's not a real thing.
Well, it is a real thing. And if we look stupid, then we give everyone else permission to.
Okay, got it. And I
Because,
love
I
looking
think
at people
there's
when they're still looking stupid.
right. I mean, okay, so now we're to the other side of perfectionism. Like, suppose we just trust that what happens between us is good enough. And as Victoria said, it's not going to speak to everybody. There will be people who are critical. There will be other people who don't appreciate it. But guess what? There are people who do. And that those are the people that matter. It's interesting how we devalue the people who value us, isn't
Well,
it?
yes, but I also have made some very serious gaffes in my life. I don't know if I should describe one of them, but I will. When in moments of pure joy of self-expression, for example, I went to a science museum, and there was a game that everybody was playing, and it was this circular thing that when you turned it around, and it created animations, so everyone could just draw stuff, and it would go around and around. And I was like, oh, I have an idea. I want to have, I could do the thing that made it look like something's going through something. That would be so cool. And so I got there and I was like, oh, I got to do this. And I put it all together and I put it up, and there's all these kids and their parents and they're all looking at it. And I circle this thing around and it looks like something's going through and going through and going through and going through. And I'm like, it was this just, oh my God, what did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
That scares me about myself.
Mm-hmm.
What if I just offend people? I mean, well, if only I was a comedian, I could just get and talk about that.
Well, did you offend them? Did they act offended?
I don't know if they really did this, but in my mind, they were like, oh, how dare you? Oh, Joey, come away. Like that was what I thought happened, that they just looked, how, oh.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing in your mind. That's what they did, but you don't necessarily have images that that's what they did. And so it's one of those places, again, where our own inner judgment. And let's just own it. There are some things that aren't acceptable in certain settings.
Right, but what did you do without knowing? That's the thing.
Then you talk to your analyst about it the next week.
I see. That's how you guys make money.
then we take a look at, well, where did that come from? What was that trying to express that needs to be consciously held instead of unconsciously held to come out when we don't want it to?
Okay, so I hear that I'm lobbying for my own hiddenness. I mean, I hear that that's what I'm doing, and I'm taking one event in the past that backfired, and I'm using it to pattern everything else, and not willing to be that person who might make that kind of mistake. And I see that, I think that you're inviting me to, into that threshold. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about, I know this is a cliche, but seeing, all the people, the Wright brothers and everybody else who tried to fly, and how many times there was failure, not once, not twice. And probably they look dumb.
I'm sure there are plenty of people who thought they were crazy. Those crazy Wright brothers out there on the beach, what are they trying to do? What do they think they're going to? But we know what happens. So I think to be willing to make mistakes, and we are far more unconscious than we are conscious. This is one of the basic beliefs of Jungian psychology. The unconscious is that unknown aspect of the self that is the source of all life. I mean, we could say it's the mystery, the divine mystery in us. And so when we do express things in ways that we embarrass ourselves or we feel judgment about, then again, it's just something in the unconscious that's wanting to come out. And it's now come out in a way that's going to get our attention, because we feel horrified by it or embarrassed by it. And so I think that when things like that happen, if we can look at it as information about ourselves, look at it as information.
Yeah, and it's also making me think that I could, for myself, with a friend or even on Facebook Live or whatever, have free time when I just are like, look, I am just going to do whatever I want to do. It's not going to be good. I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to act out however I'm going to act out. And I might even swear.
Well, it would be giving yourself permission to be in touch with what's going on underneath the surface instead of always feeling it had to look a certain way. And again, this is part of what we can do with ourselves also. I mean, that's part of what people do in stream of consciousness journaling, and art therapy. That can be a self-expression, again, in improv when you're by yourself. I mean, there are lots of ways we can also do that with privacy or with a trusted friend if we don't want to do it with a whole group of people.
I'm laughing as you're speaking, because I'm thinking one of the reasons I did stick with the harp is that I thought that it would be like, well, no, she's not offensive. She plays the harp. I mean, of course, no, she's a harpist. Of course, no, she's. But I'm really getting how important, how even in little ways, if I'm not really exploring this exploration that you're talking about really expressing myself through what I am built. It's like I'm building a house brick by brick to hold myself inside. And every time I do break through and allow people to have whatever reaction they have, and the balance, I am breaking that down, or making it, or creating a doorway, or whatever analogy I want to have. But I see that I see how I've been building my perfectionism and how it doesn't let me out, and that means others don't get what I was given to bring.
Yeah. And so if we can deal with our own shame and our own sense of devaluing ourselves, and our judgments that are going to set those things in motion, then I think we begin to be more comfortable and confident to share what is ours to share. And again, it falls where it falls.
Oh, if I was a tree, wow, right. If I was a tree and I was like, no, you got to all fall down here. So that's very helpful for me to think about what a tree does. It falls where it falls.
It falls where it falls.
Well, Kathleen, We have come to the end of another Jungian harp. We won't be here next week. I'll be at Somerset, and I will also be on retreat, but I'll see you after that. Is it August? Okay.
Perfect.
And thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you to Victoria and Green Rose and all the people who say hello before, during, and after. It's so wonderful to get to share these conversations with you. And Kathleen, thank you for this moment in my life each week, in which it's all about exploration.
It's
Thank
wonderful.
you, and see you soon.